Hello, good evening, everyone. Very excited to be using the new Reacts option in the Melon streaming app. Whenever I tell a good joke or say something shocking, the audience can react. At any rate, um, thanks for tuning in tonight or watching this later if you're watching a recording of it. We're going to go ahead and get started. And tonight I'm going to be talking a little bit about what the design process for the cool name goes here role playing game system. Now, before I get too much into it, just for folks who may not actually, well, we are starting. So let me get rid of my text along the bottom here. So, in case you're wondering what this is and you've just tuned in, you've accidentally run across me talking about it. As you probably have heard, if you're in gaming, there is talk about changing the open game license. Now, the open game license is a license used to publish products like our own World of Ataltis products. It allows us to publish products that utilize the core rules for Dungeons and Dragons, the fifth edition specifically, to create content that can then be used when people are playing the game. It's beneficial to Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro, who own it, because it allows them to have more content for players to play while still requiring the players, in most cases, to buy the rules from Wizards of the Coast or Hasbro. Unfortunately, sounds like there's some folks at Hasbro who have decided to go a different direction. And this could really put folks like myself out of business. And I don't exaggerate when I say that. If they do the worst case scenario, it could leave us unable to publish our books under the current license. Now, they are working on a new license, but unfortunately, it has some things in place like requiring you to allow Hasbro unlimited license to publish your materials on their own without a royalty. Really not a good deal and not a good business choice. And so what's happening is we are looking for options. And the option that my team has settled on is that we want to build a new system that's a replacement for fifth edition that will allow developers and creators and players to have a world that is owned by the community. So our goal here is not to put together a product that we would own, Mechanical Muse. What we're looking to do is to put together a system that we will give to the community along with a very clear, unquestionable license that makes it perpetual, irrevocable, and royalty free. And then hopefully we can give this to the community to own, to grow, to care for over the years as the years go by. And that's our goal. Now, we would like to use the system for our world so we can get our books out and publish them and get people playing in the world of Ataltis. But for now, our focus is on creating the best possible system. And one of the ways that we're going to be doing this is we're going to be launching a Kickstarter, which I'm going to give you a quick preview of that right now. Let me go ahead and see if I can grab my little preview page. As you can see, we actually have a Kickstarter page up. This is very preliminary, so understand this is going to change over time, but we do have the basics in place. And theoretically, if we needed to, we could launch this tomorrow. We have various tier levels. We have various things that we're going to be delivering. And I'm going to be using this to start with to talk a little bit more about what it is that we're planning to deliver so that you'll have some context when we start talking about how we're going to develop it. First and foremost, the name is considered a temporary name. Cool Name Goes Here is not necessarily going to be the long-term name, although I'm starting to like Cool Name RPG just because we've used it so many times. But the reality is that our goal is to create a name with the community and make that part of the process of developing this, is having the community create this with us. Some of the design concepts, we talked about those in our last video, so I'm not going to go through all of these again. I am going to look down here at some of the core RPG mechanics that we're looking at. One of our core ideas is fun and familiar. And so what we want is a system that is not so alien to new players that if they've played fifth edition, they don't pick this up and go, I don't know where to start. Right? We want something that's going to be familiar, and yet it has to be a brand new system. It can't be just a reskinned version of fifth edition. We also want it to be fifth edition friendly. And by that, I mean, it has to be something that allows developers to easily convert their product over to this system. If it's difficult to do, if it's going to take a ton of time and work and effort for people to do this, they're not going to be able to do it, right? I mean, we don't have enough time as it is. This is already going to be a very costly process for most developers and publishers. So we really need to make it as easy as possible for folks to convert over. And then we also want to make it easy to house rule, because one of the most important things for most gamers is the hobby aspect of this. And that involves making up a lot of rules that work for you and your group and enabling people to do that. I really am looking forward to creating something that'll let people be able to do that. So now we're looking at a couple of different editions of the books. We're going to have a basic rule set, and the basic rule set that we're putting together is going to be a set of rules that you can use independently to run a short adventure or a long campaign. That's a stripped down, simplified version of the rules. What's more is the community edition is designed to allow people to slip in their own world and setting content as they wish easily. Because one of the things that would be nice is if anyone can do a quick start guide without having to go through a ton of extra work. And if we make this possible with this community edition of the basic rules, anyone can put their own world content in there and still sell a quick start guide to their customers. We're also looking at having an advanced rule set. Now, this is going to dig into all the things you typically would expect to see, including monsters and spells and equipment lists and things like that. The more stretch goals and things we make, the more we can pay people to help develop all of this. But that's the goal. We're also going to be doing what we call our masterwork editions. These are ones that Mechanical Muse, our team, is going to put together, which is going to be full color. These are just black and white without illustrations. They're just basic. The community editions. But these masterwork editions are going to be full color with layout and illustrations and all of that sort of stuff. And of course, it's going to contain all the things that you would expect: character creation, lineages, classes, advancement, combat, magic, adventuring. You get the idea. If you've played a role playing game, you know pretty much what's going to be in it, right? So let's talk a little bit about the design process. And I'm going to go ahead and hide this now because we have enough of that. So the way that the design process is going to work is that right now the plan is for me to act as the lead designer. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm going to write every single rule or come up with every type of system or formula or anything like that. It means that I'm taking a lead as a sort of a project manager and sort of the hand on the keyboard. Because what we want to be able to do is we want to draw on the knowledge of the community. We want to draw on the knowledge of veteran game designers, folks who are out there right now and who've been doing this for years, right? We don't want to reinvent the wheel. We want to turn to them and say, what would you do? What would you do if you were starting from scratch? We want to be able to look at some of the new designers that are out there that are coming up with really amazing and groundbreaking ideas. We want to engage them and say, what would you do? How would you change things so you can break free of some of the old things that we think we have to have, but maybe we don't? And then, of course, we want to reach out to the community at large. We want to reach out not only to the folks who are developing amazing fifth edition content today, but we want to reach out to the players. We want to reach out to the game masters, the folks who live this stuff day in and day out, who, like me and you, love gaming. And so that's one of the big things that we're going to want to do is reach out and bring those folks in. My role in this is going to be to build out a framework. We're going to build out a framework that we're going to start use as the basis for the game so that we can build it in a logical fashion and then present what we're building to these different folks, whether it's the play testers, whether it's the our contributing designers. Give this to them and get that feedback, generate that feedback, get the ideas on how we can improve it and make it better. And so that's how this is generally going to work. I'll be standing at the center, sort of negotiating with folks, bringing in the ideas. We're not building by committee. Okay, that's one of the things I want to be really clear on is that one thing that really doesn't work is you put 12 people in a room and you try to get them all to agree on what the right system is because everyone has a different idea. So I am going to be guiding this, but think of it like a game master and players. I'm the GM. I've come up with a framework and an idea and a path forward for us. And I'm going to present that to the players, which is all of you. And I'm going to ask you what you would do next. And as you do that, you will shape the story. Now, where is this going to take us? Maybe it'll take us right down the road that I point to. And everyone's going to be like, yeah, that's what we want to do. Or maybe we'll look at it and everyone will do something completely different, just like on game night. I'm ready for that as well because I'm not out to build the perfect game for me. I want to build a great fantasy game system for us. Now, a few things to keep in mind is that we're not going to be able to bring in every single thing that people want. That's not going to be possible. And we know that. That's unrealistic. We're not going to be able to support every single genre perfectly. Now, would other people be able to take this because it's free and they can do anything they want with it and adapt it to different genres? God, I hope so. That would be fantastic. I would love to see that. On the other hand, um, we want to be able to stay focused. So, for example, in this advanced rule book, we want to be able to give people a bunch of spells. So you don't have to start from scratch. If you don't want to make up a bunch of spells, they'll be there for you. You'll have them. So really, at the end of the day, that's sort of my role is that I'm the game master, and I'm walking us through it. And when a game master does a good job, hopefully that's the role that I'll be taking, walking us through, presenting all of you with these ideas, and letting you help me tell the story of our system. And we're going to put this together, and we're going to put it out there. We're going to give it to the world, and we're going to let the world run with it. And that is key for me in this. Now, one of the questions that came in says, I'm curious about the choice between the OGL model and the Creative Commons licenses, which emerged since the 2000s. So that is a good question. What we are looking at is a license closer to Creative Commons or the types of licenses that are being used in software today. Really, when you look at, and I've been bringing this up a lot, when you look at a game system, it's very much like software. It is a set of logical systems that work together to create an effect. And that's exactly what game systems are. And so we're looking at a lot of those as well for the open source software products. Um, I'm not entirely certain if how we're going to, which direction we're going to go, which license we're going to use. Where one of the things that we're doing with the Kickstarter is we're generating the funds necessary to hire a really, really good lawyer to help us with this. Right? We're not going to try to figure it out ourselves. We're not lawyers. This is not our area of expertise. We're going to let a really good lawyer do this work for us, so that by the end of the Kickstarter, we can show people what this license is going to look like. Now, the reason there's a license is not so that people can license it from me or license it from Mechanical Muse or anything like that. The goal here is that people are going to be able to use it with confidence. The license is there to protect the creators who are using this system, so that they can hold up this license if anyone ever tells them they can't do that and say, yes, I can. And that's the whole point of that. So that can never change. Um, there are some folks, someone said they've contacted an IP lawyer, gamer friend, says they know someone who might be even better. By all means, you know what? This is part of this whole thing, is that I don't know all the people that maybe we need to know. If you know folks, we've got a Facebook group set up today. This is where this is streaming. Join up. Tell us what you've got. Share your ideas and your experience with us. Point us at the folks that you think are going to be able to make this a reality for us, right? But again, that's our goal. Is this license is not about licensing it from us, but defending your right to always be able to use this for free forever. So no one can ever say otherwise. Even if they publish something on their own, let's say someone republishes this, right? They republish the whole system, which you could do. We don't care. You can republish it word for word. There could be 40 people publishing this if they really felt like it. That's fine. But we want to make sure that every one of them feels confident they can do it without someone else coming in and going, oh, that's mine because I published it, right? That's going to protect these folks from that. And by the way, please be sure to enter your questions if you've got them as we're going along here. I definitely want to be able to answer any questions that you guys have as we're going through this. Now, I do want to talk a little bit about us, Mechanical Muse, the reason we're doing this. First off, we're gamers, right? If you know our history, my first product, the Temple of Modron, which ended up becoming the Heroes of Thornwall for Pathfinder, that book we gave away for a long time because I didn't want to try to force people to pay for it. I wanted to be able to share the joy of this thing with folks, right? We did pay what you want for a long time. Apparently, what people wanted to pay was mostly nothing. But that's the way that it goes. And that didn't work out as well as I'd hoped. But this is kind of our mindset. Our mindset isn't about, can we cash in? Like apparently some game companies are thinking. Our focus is instead on, how do we benefit the community so we can all do something cool together. So this Kickstarter that we're doing, for example, none of the funds go to us. They are all used specifically to produce this product and then give it to the world. And any extra money, let's say we have more money than we need for, say, the lawyer, right? No problem. We hire a designer to build a bunch more monsters to put in the book, or we do a much cooler layout in the community version, or we create one of the options that we're looking at is we create a website, right? A wiki. Instead of forcing somebody to come out and do it on their own and volunteer to do it, we pay to have it done. And then it's done. And then we hand it over to help form a nonprofit to run this going down the road, if we feel that's even necessary. And so this is not something that we're making money on. In fact, let me go ahead and share. I'm going to share the page again. Oh, hang on for just a second. There we go. I actually have a section here that says, where does the money go? So the places that the money's going to go to begin with are the legal fees to draft the license, the layout and design, the art and illustration, the editing and copy editing, and the printing costs, because for backers who choose to have a printed book, we got to pay for it. And then the Kickstarter and backer kit fees. None of this money is going to Mechanical Muse. And honestly, none of this is going to me. I am contributing all of my work for free on this project because I just believe in it. I love it. I want to see it happen. If we hit our stretch goals, we will add more contributing designers. And all these folks are getting paid because I don't believe in asking people to work for free. Will people do some things for free? Maybe. I know I am, but I'm not asking anyone else to, because it's not fair, right? I believe people should be paid a fair rate for their work when you ask them to work on something. We're not going to use it for any Mechanical Muse expenses. So we do have day-to-day operating expenses. We are donating our time, effort, and infrastructure to making this happen. It's also not going to go towards any sort of profit for us, and it's also not going to go towards shipping. The only people who pay for shipping are people who are getting books, right? So we're not like building it in some fashion. Hey, I know some folks aren't getting sound, but most people are. So I'm afraid I don't quite know what to say. If you're not getting sound at this point, sounds like some sort of a direct problem. Might be a browser issue. You might try a different browser. Now, going back to the design question of the design process. So as I keep saying, I am in software. There is something called an agile development framework. And a more common version of it is Scrum, it's called. Interestingly, Scrum, when you read it, reads just like how a role-playing game is run. But I actually got to meet some of the folks who invented it, and they weren't gamers, which is shocking. But it's all about self-organizing teams, working together with a high-level direction to come up with solutions to problems. This is what we're going to be using for our development. And that involves 2-week sprints where we work for 2 weeks on specific sets of tasks and goals. And at the end of that 2 weeks, we have something we can deliver. And so by doing it this way, we're going to be developing things, and every 2 weeks, putting out content that folks will be able to actually access and use. Now, it's not all going to be me. There's going to be other people helping to deliver some of this content as well. And sometimes it won't be a lot. It might just be a few things, but it will grow every 2 weeks with more and more and more as we go along, so that you can provide the feedback, and so our designers can provide the feedback, and the folks who are helping can access this information as well. So one of the questions was about, if I'm going to be taking sort of a lead role, the game master role in this, what have I done in the past that makes me right for this? Well, first, I've been gaming and playing like every game there is since the 80s, when I first started playing D&D of the Red Box. Actually, I started with Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, but um, so I certainly have the hands-on experience. But I also have run Mechanical Muse. I set this up. We've published, I think, 8 books all total now, including anthologies with New York Times bestselling authors, and books written by some great people in the industry, with contributions from everyone like Dave Gross writing, Steve Long doing editing for us at one point. A lot of folks who are just really amazing contributing to these projects over time. On top of that, I've also written for other companies. I've done work for Shadowrun. I wrote an article for Dragon Magazine in the past, written for online games. There's quite a bit that I've done over the years. On top of that, my day job involves managing large groups of diverse people from all around the world working together to put out products, which in this case happens to be software. And especially when it comes to launching new projects. This is one of my areas of expertise, and it's kind of what I do. Starting out a brand new project, looking for how to make it successful and build a foundation that will not only make this immediate release successful, but allow it to have long-term success. And so that's one of the reasons why, I'm very well suited to this. We also have a couple other people on our team, Matt Eberly, John Boyles. They're both excellent project managers in their own right, amazing at this sort of thing, and they can help out with this as well and help us to make sure that this project goes well. So from that perspective, I do believe that I'm well suited. I also ran the Gen Con Writer Symposium for almost 10 years. Myself and Melanie Metters, who's also part of our team, she ran it as well after me. The Writer Symposium, if you weren't familiar with it, had about 2,500 unique guests every year at Gen Con. More than 80 authors and experts involved. In fact, I see some of the folks who are actually on the call today are folks who spoke at the Writers Symposium. And the symposium also had more than 200 hours of programming every single year to help folks become better writers and game designers. So this is something I've done for years. I've worked with folks in the industry. I know a lot of folks in the industry. And, I think that between all of that, we're going to be able to put together something pretty amazing to give to the gaming world. And when I say we, I literally mean all of us. I'm super excited about this, even though this news about the OGL is extremely disappointing, kind of shocking almost to a certain extent. I have to say that I think it's going to drive some very cool things accidentally. I don't think Wizards was looking to try to do this, but I think they're going to be driving some pretty cool innovation as a result of this over time. All right, so I'm taking a look here at some of the questions that are coming up. Stretch goals. Yeah, we talked about that at one point. We're streaming to a couple of different places, so I'm pulling in questions from a variety of places here. Stretch goals. Yeah, for this Kickstarter, the stretch goals are going to be mostly focused on bringing in additional people with unique skill sets who can help us to create a better product. And we're talking about collaborating designers there, contributing designers. That's an important piece of this. We're also looking at, expanding the content we're going to put out. So, I'm not planning to say tackle alchemy in our base offering, but if we get enough Kickstarter support, then yeah, we can certainly look at adding an alchemy section, which would be super cool, right? I mean, it'd be great. So I'm hoping that we can do that. As far as what our base amount is going to be, yeah, we're keeping it under $10,000. I'd like to see us do 6,000, but at the same time, we have to actually pay people. So I have to be a little careful, right? I have to be careful. My wife is not amused if I have to try to cover the differences I sometimes have done. Um, Interesting. It says Scrum teams are fine once we have a platform, but the first big piece is building the platform itself. How do you see that working? That's a great question. Um, so this is actually a big part of what I do with the new projects that I build. What you typically have to do is you have to start by having a very clear plan, right? You need to know what you're building before you start building it. You can't just jump in there and just start going, here's a cool rule, here's another cool rule, right? It doesn't work that way. So what we have to do is have a very clear set of requirements in place. And this gets a little nuts and bolts and sausage making-y for some folks. So, please bear with me. But the reality is you have a clear set of goals and directives in place. You have well-written stories. That is to say, as a player, I want to be able to do this because I need this. We need to have those in place as well. So we make sure what we're building is actually what people are going to want to use, are going to enjoy using, is going to help them to have amazing games. And we have to have the dual focus of saying, how do we make a tool that's useful to other producers, other creators? So that planning is a huge part of it. Once we have that in place, we can break it down into achievable pieces, which you call stories in Scrum. And each story is a thing that you should be able to finish in that 2-week period, start to finish. And so that's going to allow us to break it in and start working it out as we go. Now, the reason why we're working in these 2-week periods is it allows us to adapt to change, because we're dealing, like with a software product, a highly complex system that there are going to be a lot of unknowns and unexpected outcomes. So I hope that answers the question about the platform. The whole idea here is that the platform we're going to build on is a really strong, clear design plan. And then we're going to actually go in there and start building out these pieces and seeing how they work and seeing if we're achieving the goals we're setting out to achieve through play testing and feedback from folks. So yeah, it's a great question because yeah, we are starting from nothing effectively. Now, to be fair, there's enough time spent playing the game that and being part of this industry that we all have a rough sense of what our options are, right? So there's a lot of that there. Um, Another question here. Wizards are literally forcing the community to adapt by becoming independent. It's true. They really are. It was nice to be able to utilize the OGL. It was really cool. And it was a pretty awesome dream that we could keep doing that, right? I would love to have seen us continue to do that and be able to use it and build together. But that's not what Hasbro wants to do, it looks like. So, yeah, we're being pushed to do something different. We're running low on time. We got about 4 minutes left. So, I'm going to start taking some of the last questions. One of the comments that came up, the decision comes down to the mechanics scale from rules light to crunch. Deciding where in that scale we want to live is important. You're absolutely right. That's a tough question. Now, I do think that to a certain extent, you can build something that allows different levels of play. So, for example, you can have something that allows a pretty light, straightforward level of play. In fact, there was a game system written by Susan Morris called, I think it was called Monster Hunters. And it was literally a spin-off made by Wizards of the Coast for children to play a D&D game. It had the same rough underlying mechanics, but it was a completely sort of different game. I think that if you have a strong enough framework, you have the potential to offer different levels of play. And I would hope that we can shoot for that. In the end, though, we will have to make some tough decisions about making sure that we're writing a system that we can get out the door and that really achieves our goals. Again, you can't achieve all the goals, right? I mean, realistically, we're just going to have to say some things are like, well, we just can't support that, right? And so we'll have to work through that. All right. Well, folks, it looks like we are almost out of time. I know that the show is trailing just behind, the stream is trailing just behind where I am. So you guys are getting things a little bit late, but I am going to have to wrap it up for tonight because I'm trying to keep these things short and sweet and stay to our schedule. In the meantime, I do hope that you will sign up for the Cool Name RPG group if you haven't already. Make sure to look on there. We've got links for the mailing list, so you're going to want to sign up for that. And here's the most important thing. We need folks to spread the word because the only way we're going to get the momentum, the groundswell that we need is if people spread the word. And once we have a big enough momentum, then we can launch the Kickstarter and really get this thing going. But the point is that if we're going to build it as a group, we need a group. And so help us build that group. That's what we need at the moment. So thank you, everyone. Appreciate your time and have a good game. We'll talk to you more. I'll be back tomorrow at the same time to talk about more stuff. So we'll talk to you later.